Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ Riesinger.
And I'm Jeanelle Slade. Tonight, more information surrounding the tragic death of 16-year-old Selena Not Afraid, found 20 days after she went missing.
Her body discovered yesterday morning. We're now learning a mile and a half from the rest area on Interstate 90 where she was first reported missing on New Year's Day.
An autopsy is slated for tomorrow here in Billings, but questions still remain. How did search and rescue crews miss her body? And will anyone be held accountable for Selena's death?
Q2's Andrea Lutz met with Bighorn County authorities today to find out more. Andrea, what were you able to learn?
Well, yeah, Russ and Jeanelle, a big question on everyone's mind. How could Selena be missing for 20 days with searches happening for 20 days and search crews miss finding her body? Well, according to Bighorn County authorities, federal trackers came in about a week ago and started from square one, combing that area again. But investigators say hard evidence, which was social media video from Snapchat, is ultimately what linked Selena back to that rest area stop around I-90.
A glimpse of how vast this area of Bighorn County really is better understood from the air. There are hills and ravines, even a creek bed. Bighorn County Undersheriff Eric Winburn says 16-year-old Selena Not Afraid's body was located out in the open, a mile and a half from the rest stop.
There was sagebrush in the area, and she was kind of laying in between, in the middle of the sagebrush.
She was found wearing boots, blue jeans, and a gray sweatshirt. But so many questions surrounding her death remain, such as how could search crews look for 20 days and miss her?
We thought she would be much closer to the rest area. And then we started searching towards Hardin and then down Fly Creek. And all the evidence pointed at the rest area.
Still, we wanted to know, without an autopsy complete, how could investigators rule out foul play so quickly?
There's no tire tracks or footprints to show that, somebody had taken her out there and left her.
And what about the group she was last seen with at the rest stop? Why did they just let her walk away?
They were interviewed several times, many times. And part of that is, I think everyone in the vehicle was intoxicated. So you don't know how much of the full story you don't get, and how much they...
Yeah, so Under Sheriff Winburn, I asked him if any criminal charges could follow in this case. He said it is possible once that autopsy for Selena is complete, authorities will have a better understanding of what happened to her. But also, she was a minor, allegedly drinking with a group of people, so possible endangerment charges of some kind could be followed. He said that would likely be filed in Yellowstone County if that's the way the case turns out. Russ and Jeanelle.
All right. Thank you, Andrea.
Well, as the pieces start to unfold, the community in Hardin is trying to heal.
That's where Q2's Zoe Zandora went today to find out what the school district is doing to help students with their grief.
She attended several of our schools, as Selena grew up, so as well as Pretty Eagle. So this is a huge impact. Many schools, many individuals.
Selena Not Afraid, a 16-year-old girl and a junior at Hardin High School. She was missing for nearly 3 weeks. Friends, students, and the community were searching and praying for her return. And now is dealing with a tragic ending.
We're here to support, and everybody's going to grieve in a different way. And we want to support whatever that happens to be.
It's been a day since her body's been found, her friends back at school, and the district is focused on taking care of them, using every tool from across the state.
Superintendent Chad Johnson says they're using counselors from other schools, help from the IHS, the Crow Tribe, and even therapy dogs.
All of the students want to go one-on-one, which happens a lot. It just all depends if the person wants to converse about their feelings. Some of them are so traumatized they don't even want to talk, but they will talk to the dog. There's no negative feedback from the dog. You didn't miss a sentence. So it's very powerful, and you just let the dog work their magic.
We are going to make this something that we need to focus on.
But how? Johnson says by creating awareness.
Usually people say that doesn't happen here or it can't happen to us. And it does happen, and it's becoming a greater problem throughout the nation and honestly quite Montana. Nobody is immune. Awareness is really what we're going to focus on and what we need to do to try to make sure that the students are going to be equipped with the tools and the mechanisms to make good decisions on keeping themselves safe.
Johnson says their support for the students and staff today, this week, and as long as they need it. In Hardin, Zoe Zandora, MTN News.
And no word yet on a planned vigil for Selena.
Well, a Billings man has been arrested in connection to a fatal crash from last summer that claimed the life of a motorcyclist. 19-year-old Andrew Sherrod was arrested Sunday and booked in the Yellowstone County Jail on one count of vehicular homicide while under the influence. He made his initial appearance in Yellowstone County Justice Court this afternoon. Sherrod was the driver of a white pickup truck that collided with a motorcycle on the evening of August 28th in downtown Billings. 43-year-old Joshua Jeffers died there at the scene.
Well, jury selection is now underway in Glendive for a suspect accused of running over and killing a 27-year-old Absaroka man almost 7 years ago. Michael Holtz is charged with negligent homicide in the death of Forrest Dana in July 2013 during the annual Absaroka Days in Absaroka. Now, Holtz allegedly ran over Dana in an alley in downtown, then left the scene. The case has a long history after initial charges were filed, then dropped, then refiled again. Now, the case was moved from Columbus to Glendive after the defense successfully argued that Holtz could not get a fair trial in Stillwater County.
Well, tomorrow, the U.S. Supreme Court will hear one of the most watched cases of its current term, one that originated in Montana.
It started with a small state tax credit and has morphed into a national battle over the constitutionality of public aid to religious schools.
MTN's chief political reporter Mike Dennison begins our coverage.
Espinoza versus the state of Montana had its beginnings 5 years ago with the passage of a $150 state income tax credit for donations that ultimately funded scholarships for students at private schools. But the Montana Revenue Department said the tax credit funded scholarships could not go to students at religious schools because Montana's Constitution forbids any state support of any church. Kendra Espinoza and two other parents whose children attend Stillwater Christian School in Kalispell sued. They're represented by the Institute for Justice, a national organization that defends public aid to private schools.
When I was denied the scholarship for my girls, I felt it was very discriminatory, very unfair, simply because they went to a religious school.
The Montana Supreme Court ruled against the parents and threw out the entire tax credit, saying it violated the state's constitutional ban on government aid to churches. The Institute and Espinoza appealed that ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court and are asking it to strike down that portion of Montana's Constitution. As they argue in their brief filed with the nation's highest court, this court should reverse the Montana Supreme Court's judgment and hold that government cannot bar the choice of religious schools in student aid programs, whether through a bigoted constitutional provision or otherwise. This holding would allow Montana's scholarship program to continue and also remove a major barrier to educational opportunity for children nationwide. The case has drawn national attention. More than 30 groups supporting religious schools have filed briefs for Espinoza. Montana's two Republican members of Congress, U.S. Representative Greg Gianforte and U.S. Senator Steve Daines, also filed a brief opposing their own state in support of allowing aid to religious schools. But more than a dozen groups, including some congregational churches from Montana and Wyoming and the Montana Association of Rabbis, are siding with the state. They say the ban actually protects religious freedom, and that's what the state argues too.
We think the First Amendment has, for the entire history of our country, rejected this idea that public funds can be coerced and sent into particular religion's education.
Graybill also says breaking down that wall in Montana's Constitution could harm public school funding.
And if that protection for public schools is gone, which is what the petitioners are asking the Supreme Court to do in this case, there are very few roadblocks left that prevent a future legislature from taking that public school funding formula and allocating it directly to private schools.
But State Representative Bill Mercer, a Billings lawyer who co-represented Espinoza in state court, says he thinks that fear is overblown.
Could the tax credit be increased? A future legislature could do that. That is true, but we all know that in the state of Montana, public institutions delivering K through 12 education are central, important.
The U.S. Justice Department under the Trump administration has also weighed in on this case for the parents in Kalispell and against the state of Montana and its Constitution. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
All right, thanks, Mike. Now the Supreme Court will rule on the case later this year.
Attorneys generals from both Montana and Wyoming are also asking the U.S. Supreme Court to take up a challenge to Washington State's decision to deny a permit for a proposed coal export terminal. They claim the state of Washington made an unconstitutional and discriminatory decision in denying that permit for Millennium Bulk Terminals project. Lighthouse Resources, a company that operates coal mines in Montana and Wyoming, planned that project. The coal would be sent by train to Washington, then shipped to markets in Asia. Montana Attorney General Tim Fox contends that the decision to deny the permit violates the Constitution, which gives the federal government, not the states, authority to restrict interstate and foreign commerce. Fox argued that Washington State blocked that terminal to favor its own products and because of a political bias against coal.
A popular Billings grocery store in West Park Promenade will soon shut its doors.
And Lucky's Market employee confirming to Q2 that store will close on February 12th. The business opened in Billings in 2014. The Boulder, Colorado-based grocer will close 32 of its 39 stores across the country, according to Grocery Business Magazine. Progressive Grocer. Now, this news comes after the Kroger company divested its interest in Lucky's Market back in 2019.
Q2 Facebook comments on this story show the store will be missed. People say they enjoy the salad bar and the different selection of products. One customer writing, "Where am I going to shop now?" Now, the Lucky's Market in Missoula is among the 23 expected to close.
And there's more news on tonight's statewide MTN News. War of the Worlds, the Montana Repertory Theater, brings to life H.G. Wells' old classic. Join Jeanelle for that and more tonight at 9 on the CW.
But first on tonight's 5:30 news, a Montana woman looking to climb her way to history, all while proving that no disability can slow her down.
And in sports, he was bullied at home in Africa and now has a fresh start in Glendive. Scott shares the unusual story in this week's Q2 Athlete of the Week.
And coming up with the weather, well, we've got a couple of waves of moisture moving our way. Could they bring some rain or snow to the Billings area? We'll show you what the computer models say coming up in a few more minutes.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 news on Q2, Montana's news leader.